She will go through thick and thin for you. But I dare say you would like to see her. Oh, by the way, I forgot. She has got a dreadful headache this morning and is stopping in bed. It isn't much in her line, but I dare say that she is a little upset. Perhaps you would like to come up to dinner tonight." This proposition, Edward, knowing full well that Ida's headache was a device to rid herself of the necessity of seeing him, accepted with gratitude and departed. As soon as he was gone, Ida herself came down. "Well, my dear," said the Squire cheerfully, "I have just had the pleasure of seeing Edward Cossey, and I have told him that, as you seem to wish it—" Here Ida made a movement of impatience, but remembered herself and said nothing. "That as you seem to wish that it should be so, I had no grounds of objection to your engagement. I may as well tell you that the proposal that he makes as regards settlements are of the most liberal nature." "Are they?" answered Ida indifferently. "Is Mr. Cossey coming here to dinner?" "Yes, I asked him. I thought that you would like to see him." "Well then, I wish you had not," she answered with animation, "because there is nothing for dinner except some cold beef. Really, father, it is very thoughtless of you." And she stamped her foot and went off in a huff, leaving the Squire full of reflection. "I wonder what it all means," he said to himself. "She can't care much about the man, or she would not make that fuss about his being asked to dinner. She isn't the sort of woman to be caught by the money, I should think. Well, I know nothing about it. It is no affair of mine, and I can only take things as I find them." And then he fell to reflecting that the marriage was an extraordinary stroke of luck for the family. Here they were at the last gasp, mortgaged up to the eyes, when suddenly fortune, in the shape of a, on the whole, perfectly unobjectionable young man, appears, takes up the mortgages, proposes settlements to the tune of hundreds of thousands, and even offers to perpetuate the old family name in the person of his son should he have one. Such a state of affairs could not but be gratifying to any man, however unworldly, and the Squire was not altogether unworldly. That is, he had a keen sense of the dignity of his social position and his family, and it had all his life been his chief and laudable desire to be sufficiently provided with the goods of this world to raise the de la Molles to the position which they had occupied in former centuries. Hitherto, however, the tendency of events had been all the other way. The house was a sinking one, and all but the other day its ancient roof had nearly fallen about their ears. Now, however, as though by magic, the prospect changed. On Ida's marriage all the mortgages, those heavy accumulation of years of growing expenditure and narrowing means, would roll off the back of the estate, and the de la Molles of Honham Castle would once more take the place in the country to which they were undoubtedly entitled. It is not wonderful that the prospect proved a pleasing one to him, or that his head was filled with visions of splendours to come. As it chanced, on that very morning it was necessary for Mr. Quest to pay the old gentleman a visit in order to obtain his signature to a lease of a bakery in Boisingham, which, together with 2 or 3 other houses, belonged to the estate. He arrived just as the Squire was in full flow of his meditations, and it would not have needed a man of Mr. Quest's penetration and powers of observation to discover that he had something on his mind which he was longing for an opportunity to talk about. The Squire signed the lease without paying the slightest attention to Mr. Quest's explanations, and then suddenly asked him when the first interest on the recently effected mortgages came due. The lawyer mentioned an approaching date. "Ah," said the Squire, "then it will have to be met, but it does not matter. It will be for the last time." Mr. Quest pricked up his ears and looked at him. "The fact is, Quest," he went on by way of explanation, "that there are, family arrangements pending which will put an end to these embarrassments in a natural and proper way." "Indeed," said Mr. Quest, "I am very glad to hear it." Yes," said the Squire. "Unfortunately I am under some restraints in speaking about the matter at present, or I should like to ask your opinion, for which, as you know, I have a great respect. Really, though, I do not know why I should not consult my lawyer on a matter of business. I only consented not to trumpet the thing about." Lawyers are confidential agents," said Mr. Quest quietly. "Of course they are, of course, and it is their business to hold their tongues." "I may rely upon your discretion, may I not?" "Certainly," said Mr. Quest. "Well, the matter is this. Mr. Edward Cossey is engaged to Miss de la Molle. He has just been here to obtain my consent, which of course I have not withheld, as I know nothing against the young man, nothing at all. The only stipulation that he made is, I think, a reasonable one under the circumstances, namely that the engagement is to be kept quiet for a little while on account of the condition of his father's health. He says that he is an unreasonable man and that he might take a prejudice against it." During this announcement Mr. Quest had remained perfectly quiet, his face showing no signs of excitement, only his eyes shone with a curious light. "Indeed," he said, "this is very interesting news." "Yes," said the Squire, "that is what I meant by saying that there will be no necessity to make any arrangements for the future payments of interest, for Cossey has informed me that he proposes to put the mortgage bonds in the fire before his marriage." "Indeed," said Mr. Quest. "Well, he could hardly do less, could he? Altogether I think that you are to be congratulated, Mr. de la Molle. It is not often that a man gets such a chance of clearing the encumbrances off a property. And now I am very sorry, but I must be getting home, as I promised my wife to be back for luncheon. As the thing is to be quiet, I suppose it would be premature for me to offer my congratulations to Miss de la Molle." "Yes, yes, don't say anything about it at present. Well, goodbye." End of chapter 25.